Thank you, Jennifer. Good morning to those of you who are here in the sanctuary and to those of you who are viewing us online. My name is Sandra Murphy. I prefer the pronoun she, her, and I will be the worship associate this morning. As we begin our service, I'd like to take a moment and ask you to silence your phones. Thank you. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Flint. We are an inclusive, progressive, LGBTQIA+ affirming church, and we are happy to have you with us. If you'd like to learn more about this congregation or Unitarian Universalism, we invite you to contact one of our ministers, the Reverend Lynn and Jerry Kerr, or to visit our website, uuflint.org. There are a few announcements this morning, and as always, you will learn more details about each of these announcements in the weekly e-update. Our service next Sunday is all about the book, Defund Fear, Safety Without Policing, Prisons, and Punishment by Zach Norris. We will read excerpts from the book, watch a video of people discussing it, then we will take our turn talking about how we can stop crime, not with police, but by investing in people. Do you have an idea for a social justice event or anything else you would like to help us with, large or small? In our congregation, anyone with an idea is encouraged and empowered to make it happen. Our board members take turns helping you with your ideas, and in August and September, that board member is Kathy Stiles, and there she is. This is our new way of doing business and our important work, and you no longer have to sit on a committee to make UUCF better. The Congregational Policies and Procedures Manual, I'm going to say that one more time. The Congregational Policies and Procedures Manual updates continues and is ready for the next round of proofreading and edits. If you enjoy proofreading, are detail-oriented, have a strong institutional knowledge of UUCF, or just want an excuse to spend extra time in our beautiful building, let Kathy Stiles know. This is the woman on the go here. There will be a get-together the morning of Saturday, September 17th from 9 till noon to work on this project. The document will also be available electronically if you prefer to edit that way. Text or email Kathy or see her after the service for more information. We invite you to stay a few minutes after our service this morning and learn how UUCF is supporting the free 4 Pillars mental health program of the Genesee Health System. Knowing about this program will help you serve the mental health needs of our community. And now our chalice lighting. This is the gift we have been given, this light, this breath, these friends, this hope. And if you would now join me in saying our covenant. And I'm waiting for the screen to bring it up to help us all. Here we go. Recognizing the richness of diversity, the beauty and wonder of shared worship, and the transforming power of love and service, we gather as a sacred, intentional community to freely seek knowledge and truth, to celebrate the fullness of life, and by our actions to increase goodness and justice.
Give up the fight for some other moment, some other life than here and now. Give up the longing for some other world, the wishing for other choices to make, other songs to sing, other bodies, other countries, other stakes. Purge the past, forgive the future, for each come too soon. Surrender only to this life, this day, this hour. Here we remember ourselves. All a part of it all, giving thanks together.
Maybe we could all stand.
Stand if you like, yes, thanks. Our words for meditation this morning are those of Thich Nhat Hanh. The most important practice for preventing war is to stay in touch with what is refreshing, healing, and joyful inside of us and around us. If we practice walking mindfully, being in touch with the earth, the air, the trees, and ourselves, we can heal ourselves, and our entire society will also be healed. If the whole nation would practice watering seeds of joy and peace, and not just seeds of anger and violence, the elements of war in all of us will be transformed. We must prepare ourselves, whether we have 1 minute, 10 years, or 1,000 years. If we don't have time, there is no use in discussing peace, because you cannot practice peace without time. If you have 1 minute, please use that minute to breathe in and out calmly and plant the seeds of peace and understanding in yourself. If you have 10 years, please use the 10 years to prevent the next war. If you have 1,000 years, please use the time to prevent the destruction of the planet. Just by your way of looking at things and doing things, you influence others. Approach everyone with love and patience, and try to water the positive seeds in them. We have to help each other, being skillful, kind, and understanding. Blaming and arguing never help. In the practice of mindfulness, we nurture the ability to see deeply into the nature of things and people. And the fruit is insight, understanding, and love. As we sit in silence today, let us reflect on the many gifts we have to offer to bring grace and peace into this troubled world. During our musical meditation, you'll be invited to come forward and light a candle of joy or concern if you like, or you can also go to the back of the sanctuary and write down your joy of concern in one of the books, and we'll put it into the e-update next week. But first, let us enjoy 90 seconds of silence.
nobody else can walk in your shoes quite the way that you do. So be at peace with yourself. Keep a spring in your heel. Just keep climbing that hill. Be at peace with yourself. The cold winter chill. Winds freeze like hell. There's a way where there's a will. Don't cry over milk that spilled, 'cause at the end of the day ain't nobody else gonna walk in your shoes quite the way that you do. So be at peace with yourself. Keep a spring in your heel. Just keep climbing up that hill. And be at peace with yourself.
The reading this morning is an excerpt from a book by Rabbi Wayne Dosick. And the accuracy of this actual story that he tells has long been debated. Childhood polio left Itzhak Perlman able to walk only with braces on both legs and with crutches. When Perlman plays at a concert, the journey from the wings to the center of the stage is long and slow. Yet when he plays, his talent transcends any thought of physical challenge. Perlman was scheduled to play a difficult, challenging violin concerto. In the middle of the performance, one of the strings on his violin snapped with a rifle-like popping noise that filled the entire auditorium. The orchestra immediately stopped playing, and the audience held its collective breath. The assumption was he would have to put on his braces, pick up his crutches, and leave the stage. Either that, or someone would have to come out with another string to replace the one that broke, or replace the violin. After a brief pause, Perlman set his violin under his chin and signaled to the conductor to begin. One person in the audience reported what happened. "I know it is impossible to play a violin concerto with only 3 strings. I know that, and so do you." But that night, Perlman refused to know it. You could see him modulating, changing, and recomposing in his head. At one point, it sounded as if he were retuning the strings to get a new sound that had never been heard before. And when he finished, there was this awesome silence that filled the room. And then people rose and cheered. Perlman smiled, wiped his brow, and then raised the bow of his violin to quiet them. And then he spoke, not boastfully, but quietly, in a pensive tone. You know, sometimes it is the artist's task to find out how much music you can still make with what you have left. Carolyn Schrock Schenk was a true Midwest farm girl. She loved to climb trees, milk cows, and wrestle with her brothers. She could do without the cooking and the cleaning. Her grades were fine in school, but in her family, your physical abilities mattered most, and that's where Carolyn excelled. There were few sports she hadn't tried and conquered. It looked like all of that, though, would end her senior year in college. She was a passenger in a car that rolled down a steep embankment. She was left with a very serious back injury. Doctors thought that the spine was too badly damaged for her to not be paralyzed for the rest of her life. Now, Carolyn didn't believe she could live a life in a wheelchair. She would rather die. But after many surgeries and a whole lot of therapy, she recovered, and she was able to walk again. Not only was she able to walk, she went back to every sport that she was doing before. Doctors said it was a miracle. For 25 years, Carolyn lived a normal, active life. She earned a master's degree and became a leading expert on mediation and reconciliation. She found a calling as the professor of peace, justice, and conflict studies at Goshen College in Indiana. But soon after starting that position, she started to feel a weakness in her ankles. Next, she started to lose some of her balance. At first, she said she was in fierce denial. After a while, she realized that wasn't accomplishing anything, so she began to make peace with the fact that there was just a few activities she wasn't going to be able to do. Well, it turned out it was only skating and running, and she could live with that. She decided she could certainly have a happy life with all the other sports that she had left. A few years later, however, excruciating pain made her give up tennis as well. Then, increasing balance issues made her decide that volleyball should probably also come off the list of things she should do. It came down to, eventually, that Carolyn could only ride her bike. But she says she was thankful for still having at least one physical activity that she could enjoy. Carolyn is a perfect example of a person who found inner peace with an increasingly bad situation in her personal life. Like the violinist Itzhak Perlman, she learned to make music with what she had left. Although at times it was a struggle, she was able to become positive about what she did have, rather than become negative about what she didn't have. I'm of the opinion that progressive people of all persuasions might practice this a little more. We can be overly ambitious when we hope to find peace by making this a better world. Lord knows it needs it. It's a worthy goal, to be sure, but Buddhism and many other philosophies teach us that true peace comes from within. Before we can spread peace and happiness outward, we have to do the hard work of finding it within first. Now, of course, it would be much more desirable if we were simply able to say, don't worry, be happy. Remember that song? Or as humorist Dave Barry put it, my therapist told me the way to achieve true inner peace is to finish what I start. So far today, he said, I have finished 2 bags of M&Ms and a chocolate cake, and I feel better already. Achieving real inner peace is as unique as every individual, though. It can also be as difficult as the physical trials that Carolyn faced, or as commonplace as a family chess game. I've been watching game after game, I think they're up to 11 or 12, between my husband and son all summer. The chessboard has not moved from the coffee table since Rowan got home from college in May. They rarely play at the same time. I never thought it was such a solitary game. Rowan stumbles down in the morning, stands over the table, rubbing his chin, a habitual thinking pose he learned from his father, contemplating his next move. It's the first thing he does. Jerry prefers sitting on the edge of his chair, feet planted firmly, hands on knees, ready to pounce as soon as he has made the decision to move. In between moves, I've noticed they study. Rowan's reading an old, tattered book on chess. Jerry listens to occasional chess master tutorials. At a restaurant the other night, they discussed one of their games. "You really blew it with that move, old man," my son quipped. Now, I realize it has been said 100 times, but I have to say it again. Chess really is a great metaphor for life. That's probably why the game has been played for over 1,400 years. As chess grandmaster Garry Kasparov sees it, it prepares you for life by improving your logic skills, teaching you to play by the rules, shows you how to take responsibility for your actions, and it teaches you to problem solve in an uncertain environment. It also requires one to constantly learn from mistakes by recognizing all the possible patterns that game can take. And that can take a lifetime. It can also prove to be a little bit too much for some people. Consider Bobby Fischer. Becoming the youngest grandmaster in history took its toll on him. The pressure and the fame eventually got to him, and he became a recluse for 20 years. A friend of ours knew him during some of those years as he hid out in Madison, Wisconsin. Rather than finding inner peace by getting away from it all, he was in turmoil. She recalls that at small dinner parties or just casual meals, he spoke little. Deep conversations seemed to be difficult for him. Fisher got to a point where he just seemed overwhelmed by a normal day with normal routines. He said once of chess and life, one day you give your opponent a lesson, the next day he gives you one. Although chess seemed easy for Fisher, he never seemed to learn the difficult lessons of everyday living. He couldn't navigate normal interactions and routines to function quite like the rest of us. While he seemed to always know what should be the next move on the chessboard, he couldn't make sense of the opportunities in front of him on any given day. He just couldn't find peace within himself. He had years like that. I think most of us, if we're lucky, just have small, limited periods of time like that. Times when you see nothing but obstacles, when the state of the world is particularly precarious and it feels like talking about peace would be almost ludicrous, for instance. I know we've all gone through those times when we're frustrated or angry, perhaps even feeling hopeless. When joy and peace just seem a little bit out of our reach. And I know that some of you that I've talked to are feeling that way right now. When all we see are the challenges that we face to create a better world, to make things seem right again. It's a time when sometimes we wonder, when is the other shoe going to drop? It reminded me of the poem, The Century's Decline, perhaps you've heard it, by Wisława Szymborska. Here's a few lines from it. Happiness and spring, among other things, were supposed to be getting closer. Fear was expected to leave the mountains and the valleys. Truth was supposed to hit home before a lie. A couple of problems weren't going to come up anymore. Hunger, for example, and war, and so forth. There was going to be respect for helpless people's helplessness. Trust, that kind of stuff. Anyone who planned to enjoy the world is now faced with a hopeless task. I would hope that we could stay away from this extreme negativity. Because our tradition teaches us to transcend those situations that appear to be hopeless. Rather than resign in the chess game of life, we are encouraged in our tradition and many others to keep looking for another move. And we begin right here. True peace starts within. We start by showing ourselves self-acceptance and compassionate understanding of our own needs and our own feelings. Then we can build the capacity to provide it to others, to go out there and save the world. In other words, inner peace empowers us to build outward peace. If there's no peace in here, there can be no peace out there. But again, we all will find it in our own ways. I wanted to share one kind of what I think is fun and memorable. Some of you may groan, but it's written in an algebraic expression, and I like it. So I'm going to share it with you. You don't have to use it, but here it is. 3 PA is greater than 1 NT. See, you all love it already, don't you? Okay, so P stands for positive. A stands for actions, and the greater than symbol, you know what that is. And the N stands for negative and T stands for thought. So this equation reads, 3 positive actions are greater than 1 negative thought. So, I'm going to give you an example so you kind of get it. But the idea is maybe put that on a Post-it note, a few places around the house so you don't forget the equation. And so this is what it looks like. So if you have a negative thought that occurs, and not that I would ever have this one, but gosh, I hate my body. Okay, I have it most days. Okay. So what I have to do then is, that's my negative thought on the right side. So now I have to do 3 positive actions to counteract that 1 negative thought. And you have to do it right away. You can't say, I'm going to do it tomorrow. You have to do it right away. So 1, I could take the dog for a walk immediately to improve my physical fitness, right? Because that's going to help. 2, I can affirm something that I do like about myself right away, immediately. Number 3, I could sign up for a yoga class, but here's the catch, I have to actually go. Just signing up doesn't work. So, and then here's the catch. You have to keep doing this for at least 21 days, because do you know what happens after 21 days? It becomes a habit. That's right. So if you use something, you may not like this, but there's all kinds of ways you can do this kind of thing. But this helps you control the game rather than always playing defensively, right? Waiting for something to happen to you. Because the people who play defense in life or in chess, they usually lose. Now, as I said, this isn't going to be one solution fits all for peace of mind. And I have to say, it probably would be way too simple for the life-altering disabilities that Carolyn Schrock-Schenk continually faced. So I realize that. Now, you might remember that she was a professor of peace studies. Kind of ironic. It's one thing to have to teach people about peace and conflict, but it's quite another when you face the one obstacle in life that you said you could not rise above. You couldn't live your life in a wheelchair. And yes, suddenly after 25 years of doing okay, she suddenly lost all movement in her lower body. Therapy failed. Many more surgeries failed. The doctor said, you have to be in a wheelchair for the rest of your life. The one thing she said she could not handle. So once again, Carolyn saw death as the only alternative and begged God to let her die. Well, somehow, Carolyn came across the story of Itzhak Perlman and the 3 strings story about his violin playing. Suddenly, she felt ashamed and decided not to pray to die, but to pray that she could make some kind of life, some kind of music with what she had left. She wrote about her experience saying, I decided to stop asking for anything and simply be thankful. Can you imagine? She continued to teach. She developed a core class around peacemaking at her college. She created a model program there matching students with incarcerated students who were earning degrees. And although she said she would never make peace with living in a wheelchair, she did. She said it was very hard to adjust to have people doing other things for her because she was always so independent, always so active. But she said, I needed to reconcile the deep longings in my soul. She said she missed so many things besides walking, but sometimes the gap between our plans and dreams and reality is huge, bigger than we could have ever imagined or believed we could handle. Well, she handled it. She handled it all and made peace with it for 16 years in a wheelchair until she died in 2019 from complications of her disability at the age of 63. Now, you might think this is the end of her story. But with her permission, Carolyn's pastor, who was also a good friend, shared some things at her funeral that demonstrated that most of us continue to do the hard work of making peace with ourselves right up until the end. In the last few months of her life, Carolyn confessed that bitterness had started to creep in due to all the setbacks that she had endured during her life. She said she felt lonely and isolated because of her never-ending physical calamities, as she called them. She said she was thinking about writing a book about the meaning of suffering titled Where God Went Wrong. She thought she'd include things that just shouldn't happen, like children dying, paraplegia, and mosquitoes. But in her last weeks, she finally realized that the more she focused on how awful her life was, the more awful it was. So she started to make an effort to see the positive realities in her life once again. A warm house, cupboards stocked with food, and an income to maintain both. She started to pay attention to the meaningful things in her life, such as her circle of friends and neighbors and colleagues and family. And hours before she died, when she asked her pastor if it would be okay to finally give up and let go, just this once, he said yes. And she did. And she died peacefully surrounded by the people who loved her. Now, Carolyn had reached a point several times in her life when she was happy just to have the necessities of life, and even at times happy just to have life. She became the epitome of the positive attitude of love and understanding that Thich Nhat Hanh believed creates peace. Hanh also suggested that if you have more time, you can accomplish even greater things for yourself and for the world. William Schultz, former president of the UUA and Amnesty International, says that with time, not only can you begin to understand yourself and make peace with yourself, but you can also achieve inner peace through forgiveness. He tells the story of a man who was tortured in a South American prison. The man survives and is released, and many years later, he's walking down the street and he sees the man who tortured him. He stops and he asks the torturer, "How are you?" And the man who tortured him says, "I'm very depressed. I'm being tried for my crimes." And the other man says, "If you need anything, come to see me." And he puts out his hand. He said, "Shake my hand, friend. I forgive you." Schultz says, if even a survivor of brutal torture can find peace and try to give it to another, then certainly anyone on earth can find inner peace. Schultz concludes that it proves that the chess master was right, and he tells the story. Chancing upon a great painting in a European gallery of a defeated Faust sitting opposite the devil at a chess table with only a knight and a king on the board, and the king in check, the chess master stopped to stare. The minutes changed to hours, and still the chess master stared. And then finally, "It's a lie," he shouted. "The king and the knight have another move. They have another move." It seems to me there's always something. 3 strings, a warm house, something that we all have to make music with. So I ask you, what will you do with what you have left? Because I believe all of us have another move. May it be so.
Feeling groovy. Had to say it, sorry. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you to all of you for the many ways you support UUCF, allowing us to share our UU values with this community and beyond. Your generous offering makes our life-affirming and justice-centered messages possible. We invite you to join us as we take the collection by placing your offering in one of the baskets at the entrance of the church. As you leave, you can do it online at uuflint.org, or you can scan the QR code on the back of the order of service. Give until it feels good.
Every week, we gather in this beautiful space to find peace. Each week, words and music offer and celebrate peace with the hope of instilling it in us. Now take the peace you have found here and take it into the world with you. Be at peace. Go in peace. Make peace.
And let us extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.